things that we've been through. Life is better with you.
Hey guys, I'm Brian,
And I'm Allison.
and this is.
Our life in front of the bleachers.
So we got some special guests on with us. It's a rarity that we get to see both of them at the same time nowadays because we're in the empty nest stages of life. So we have two boys, and we've talked about them in some previous episodes. But they're our pride and joy, and they were our motivation for a lot of our moves and a lot of everything that we did. And not much of it was easy, and that's what we want to talk about in this podcast. We want to talk a little bit about their experiences as children in sports families. So, mama's version of how things go down versus daddy's version of how things are supposed to go down. They weren't always meshing. We both had different expectations on what was to be for our sons, but we got them involved as many things as we could when they were younger. You want to talk about some of those things that you remember getting them involved in, Al?
Any sports, anything to get them really out of the house and busy is what we were doing. So taekwondo, golf, soccer, gymnastics, golf,
Tennis, it didn't matter.
tennis.
Yeah, golf was important because it came up twice. But so we'll go with the oldest first. So with Allison, this is our oldest son, Parker, and Parker was involved in all those things. What do you think was the most important early, you know, not necessarily memory, but involvement in different sports that you recall? That was important to me because it helped set some tones for everything else I did.
Lacrosse, 1,000% lacrosse. Um, I remember Taekwondo, and there was one specific memory. It didn't really relate to anything other than just I remember putting on a blindfold and sparring with this one guy who was a lot bigger, and it was just kind of the first time of like being outside my comfort zone as a kid and just having to do something that I wasn't comfortable with, and going up against people that were much bigger. So that kind of set the tone for me to say like, yeah, I can do this no matter how big they are. And then lacrosse for me was just kind of my thing that I was good at that nobody else could really tell me how to do it. It was my own thing, and yeah, I got to teach myself, and nobody could tell me I was doing it
Meaning
wrong.
dad.
Or mom. But no, I remember the Taekwondo. The kid was like a good foot taller than you, and he was probably 3 years older than you, and you were going for your black belt. I think it was like your first sparring deal, and I was like, oh, I was talking to Alice. I think we actually squeezed each other. Oh no, what's going on? And you went after that kid. That was the
Yeah.
first real aggressive moment that I'd seen out of you when you were early childhood, and I think that gave you some confidence going forward.
Well, the worst part was that kid didn't have a blindfold, but I did. He was a foot taller and could see.
Well, it was just to kind of keep your mind on some other senses, I guess. But so Tate.
Then Tate's our youngest. And he's with Brian. So, what is your earliest memories of sports?
I say basketball for sure. Because I had my dad as my coach when I was in the little rec league, and then you had my brother as the assistant coach. So
Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it?
no, it was not. So it was a different experience from all my other sports because this was really my first time that a family member was coaching me, and I guess it was like a little like a shadow of what was to come in my future. But yeah, I feel like that was a great experience for me, just knowing that I could play that sport while still having a family member around, but like being able to differentiate that when I was younger, I feel like helped me when I was older playing for him, helped me out way easier than it did with my brother, because I could play when I was in third grade, play basketball while dealing with the same yelling that I dealt with when I was in high school. So.
See, those are some regrettable moments as a father. I'll go ahead and say that. I'll interject for both of you because I thought, hopefully you guys give me the benefit of the doubt when you're older here. I thought that my role as a daddy/coach was to be the bad cop, to push you to your limits, almost like a coach does with his whole team. And I think both of you probably struggled, as did I, taking the hat off. Was I daddy? Was I coach? I was always tough and pushing you and doing those things. And sometimes it was things that you guys didn't want to do. But I don't think we drove you away from sports because y'all both stayed involved in it. But like you said, Parker, you got to get involved in lacrosse because you knew I couldn't coach you in that. I knew nothing about it, and it gave you your own sense of worth and purpose. So I think sometimes we do some things as daddies because we want it so bad for you to be successful and have some fun. But there's a fine line, and I crossed it many times, not knowing that when I should shut off coach and just be a daddy. And I look forward to those days when y'all finally give some grandkids so I can be a better daddy figure the second time around. But how about when you talk about those fond memories? You guys talk about those sports, but what about as the sons of coaches, as a coach or son of a coach, those experiences when you guys were on the sidelines when you were young, or any fond memories that you guys recall from that?
Or not so fun.
Ball boy was always one of those things that it was just kind of like the family affair of. I think that's what kind of like Tate's growing up with basketball was different than my growing up. Was seeing you as a coach was me seeing ball boy. So I got to see the hard full on coach, not really of what was to come, but to game day dad. And game day dad was what I knew during football season, and that's different than anything else. We knew, stay away for breakfast, let him be, let him do his thing, and that was kind of it. But I mean, growing up there, being around football, being around kind of that coaching style and seeing it firsthand, I remember it from that perspective. Even some youth sports, except mom was my soccer coach, so that one was a completely different style of coaching too.
Hula hoops, that was the answer one. Hey, you remember when he was young and I had that practice and he wanted to be coach? Talk
Oh,
about that one as you recall.
yeah. He came up with his whistles. He had his hat on. He was ready to go on the field, and
How old was he? He was 4? Probably.
well,
Something close to it. It
something
was
close
before
to that.
before school. But I remember he wanted so much to be like Dad. He wanted everybody to listen, and they wouldn't listen to him. And boy, he threw a meltdown fit. That's for sure. So I felt bad for him, but he had this whole image in his head. This is what I'm gonna do because they listen to Dad. They're gonna listen to me. And I think it was kind of eye opening for him a little bit to say, I ain't quite old enough yet. But I remember that. I remember I look back on it. It's like, man, that kid wanted to be like me, and there were some times I screwed it up because I was not a good coach slash daddy. I didn't get it all done. And I remember Tate. Tate was a little bit different. He didn't really want to be a ball boy because I think he'd seen all
No.
this stuff on the.
That was more forced, I think.
Well, no, I watched Parker do it, and I was just like, I would always have a fun time doing that, and I did. Like, I would always like try to get my friends to come do it, but I wasn't playing football whenever I did do it, so I wasn't like, oh, this is what I want it to be. I just was like, I'm just gonna do this to help out my dad, and I was just like, Parker did it. I guess I got to do it. So I guess it was not in a forceful way, but it was a forceful way.
It was. It kept you guys
Passed down. But
on the sidelines.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys got to see the raw emotions that go into winning and losing, and you got to go and see some of the good and bad from parents. You got to see the good and bad from players. You got to see it all. And I know some of you guys, some of those kids that you guys were around, they were your role models. You used to come to practice every day, take and squirt everybody with water, and they'd run away from you. You thought it was the funniest thing in the world, but you just loved some of those kids. Parker was the same. He had Pokemon, all that stuff back in the way day.
Yeah.
There were kids that loved Pokemon, and you idolized them. So I think being a coach's son gave y'all at least some exposure to some good kids and good people, and gave you some ideas of what you wanted to do one day. But I think if you were never a coach's son and never around that, what do you think your lives would be now? Do you think you'd still be involved in sport, Parker?
I don't know.
Tough way to think of it.
So it's a tough. Let's just kill all the childhood.
Because
Um,
that's essentially everything it was. It was all
yeah,
about sports,
I
whether it be
mean,
football,
it was
basketball.
moving. It was pretty much the whole life. Even though every move was strategic, it was still, if you were a banker or an accountant or something, or we just did something that was like stay there. I always thought about that going over like friends' houses of like what their parents did and why do we have to move but they get to stay. Um, just thinking about that stuff, but it was always interesting to think about like why my friends, lived the life they did, but then why we kind of moved around too. But then, you know, there was some bigger family, like you said, of just like the team, and at the end of the year of just crying because we lost, and then just not understanding it, but knowing that like it was over. So that was a big thing I think too, of just getting that bigger family, at least with the coaching side. But then, I'd compare to um, teaching stuff. You don't get a lot of money, so seeing the families with like 2-story houses going over there. Some of my good friends growing up, we'd go over there and do stuff, and it was like, well, dang, like why don't we have that? So I think that was part of it.
We made some differences, but you're right. I know, looking in retrospect as a child, you probably always wonder those things. Why don't we have those certain things? And we didn't ever get to the point. We really never got to the point where we had extra. So I think it was comfortable at times, but it was uncomfortable a lot more than it was comfortable. So Tate, what would you think you'd be doing if you hadn't gotten involved in sports? So for you guys don't know, he's a college football player. So he's in the middle of that now in his career, and that's what he's chosen to do. But had you not been exposed to it, you think you'd be where you are now?
I mean, I was exposed to football, and I just didn't really want to play at all. I played when I was younger, and I was very passionate about it when I was younger. And then whenever I got to middle school, that's kind of where I was just like, I kind of play these different sports that's not really in the family. And that's where I kind of just stayed until high school. I really didn't play football until my junior year. So I mean, I like him with the move, and I really knew that it was like kind of based off of football, and I didn't really know what was really going on, but I knew I kind of had a feeling we would kind of keep moving. So I kind of never really got attached to most of the places we were. So I feel like that's what could have different stuff from Parker and I. Feel like he got attached, and I knew that we weren't gonna stay, or I knew we weren't gonna be there long, or this house we weren't gonna be there long. I knew all that. I just never thought of it as like,
We had more moves when you were younger, and that's
yeah,
right. I think you were a little more oblivious just because of your age. But Parker, you're right. I think he had probably a much more difficult time with some of those moves just because, like he's already talked about, with friends and what they were doing and why are we moving? Why do we always have to do this? So let's bridge into that moving. As many times as we've moved at least 7 times, 7 different places over the course of 20 some years. What do you think about that? I mean, if you look back on that, what was the hardest part of that process?
Mm. Oh, Tate hit something about like me being attached more. I think he's right. He definitely handles that like a lot better than I do. I get attached and super passionate very quick. Um, and that's just something that I've always had. Just latch onto it, do it full speed from the get go. But you know, like I can't really separate that. And I remember one time we'd gone to one place and um, we were leaving there not knowing that we weren't going back to that high school. We practiced there all summer, and that hurt because I thought that was going to be my home for the 4 years, and um, I think that was the hardest as at
You
least
were
as
a
a
ninth
player.
grader then. I remember
Yeah,
coming back
that
from
was my
that.
that was
You
my
were
freshman
devastated.
year, so I
Yeah,
was pretty beat down
yeah.
on that one, and then going not knowing where I was going to go be a freshman in high school.
Yeah,
Um,
because we really didn't know right away. I think it was when you guys came back, it was at least a month and a half later and 2 months till school started that we,
But that one was out of our hands. It
yeah,
wasn't
that
as
that
if
one wasn't.
it
I
wasn't like
think
I
the
chose to. Not, it was that I chose it, but it had to do with mom's job more than
yeah.
anything else. But I think as you look back on those times, I saw how much it devastated you. but every move that we were trying to do, because of what you've already mentioned, how important lacrosse was, we had to go find schools that had that. And down in the South, it's a little more difficult because there weren't very many schools that really had organized or school-based lacrosse. It was more club-oriented. So my window for jobs that, when it wasn't good in a certain spot and I knew I had to go somewhere else, it really got a narrow pool because we needed to make sure we had you for lacrosse, and that school had it. And then when we
Yeah.
moved back, we had to get it to you too. So, but I know it was tough. I know it was, and I'm so sorry.
But you
Well-
did have a good year.
Yeah, well, I think it ended up being okay, but I think to Tate's point of like us having differences too, like when he was younger, like when we moved around 2008, I remember just like that being rough of like not knowing where we were gonna sleep, stuff like that. So that was
From the tent to living in offices to bouncing around 18 times or whatever we chose that we talked about there over the course of a year. That was tough. I know it was.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad, but that was the housing market. It was kind of out of our hands there too. We'd made a decision based on what we thought was working well because it looked like it was and everything was fine. Then the housing market went kaput and I didn't have a choice because I'd already taken a job and we'd moved. But, all those trials and tribulations, whether you remember them all or don't, they have an impact on what kind of person you become. And I feel a lot of guilt and remorse because I made those decisions because of education and teaching and coaching, and it didn't bring a lot of money, but it brought a lot of heartache. I know that, but I mean, it did turn out well. If you look at it to this point, you were able to go to a school mostly because of lacrosse, and I think some of those things. I remember watching a documentary on Showtime. It was called A Game of Honor, and the Game of Honor. I think you were in 6th or 7th grade, and it kind of showcased the Army Navy game. And I thought, I'd never seen you so intense watching sports. I'd never seen you so intense watching that program. And at the end of it, I was like, Park, you think you can do that? And you said, I know I can. And that kind of changed the tone on what you were looking for too, I think. But man, I didn't want to take it and say it publicly. I couldn't be more proud of the two boys we had and all the stuff that they had to overcome. And I know there are lots of coaches and families that have to deal with this, and I know they're military families and such, but you're my boys. And what you guys were able to endure and overcome, I think it's awesome. So I think what you guys have become, we're extremely proud. We rave about you all the time, but I know it wasn't easy. So for Tate, for you moving, we had to move when you were in high school. So we had kind of moved right as you were getting ready to go into high school, similar to Parker, where you went to one school and then you end up going to another. But it seemed to work out well for you.
Yeah, well, I know going into my freshman year of high school, I was enrolled in 4 different high schools. So I was enrolled in 3 at the beginning of the year and then 1 at the end. So it was
It's a big chip.
it was
It's an
I
ongoing
kind of just
family
doubled
chip.
what
Yeah.
Parker had. I was just like,
Did you ever get friends that like called you and they're like, hey, they called your name? Because I remember when we moved going into high school, all my friends called me on the first day, so that way I could say here on the first day. For like, yeah,
I know. We had like homeroom,
yeah,
and the high school that I was supposed to go to at our previous high school right before we moved, I was still on the list
yeah.
to be in the homeroom. So they texted me that, and I was just like, well, that's funny because I'm nowhere close to
We're not coming.
at all.
So I wonder if you guys are going to get that 10, 15-year reunion call from like 20 different
Yeah,
schools.
Yeah.
I feel like I could. Because like when I talked to all those friends from up there, they still think I was there that whole freshman year, which I wasn't at all. Like I moved to middle school, moved away, and they still thought I was there in high school, and so they never really thought of it as that. I mean, but I mean, moving through those schools, I kind of still had the same thought process that I was just like not getting too attached. I kind of knew that it was kind of a temporary position, especially the 3rd high school that I was enrolled in.
But you were like a legend in that school now because you're like the guy that walked down the hallways and you could set the trend with wearing pajamas and you could dunk a basketball and everybody thought you were something. So everybody loves some tape back in the day. So it ended up working out okay for you, but you had to go through some mess to get there. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And I think you're in a good place now, in a place that you love, and things are starting to work well for you. So let's go latter part. So all that led to it, playing for your daddy. The first game, Parker, I go back to first practice where I tried to tell you, I said, look, buddy, I'm going to be as hard as I can on you so nobody will resent you. And I know you heard it. I don't think you kind of processed it because I remember you dropped a pass and you walked or something. I don't know what it was.
I won't.
And you
I
walked.
remember it vividly.
I remember my.
It wasn't even a walk. It was a slight jog.
Well, I ripped you another one, and everybody's like, oh, my gosh, if you're going to treat your son that way, I'm certainly scared to death how you're going to treat me. So it did turn everything in line, but it made it so that nobody, when you were starting, because you earned the starting spot on both sides of the football as a first-year player there, a sophomore, and you earned it, but nobody in that place would have thought you were giving it because you certainly weren't giving it. You earned everything, and I thought that was the best thing to do, but I think you struggled with the daddy coach part much more than maybe Tate did on me taking my hat off versus leaving it on.
Did you ever get that?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever get that first practice where
No, I got a first game.
it was kind of like, in prison where it's like you're gonna go take on the biggest dude in the yard? Yeah, that's what it felt
I
like.
remember that. I remember my first game. This is my first football game since I was in fourth grade. But I did something wrong on defense, and I knew better to run off the field, but I just didn't because I was in my head that I just did bad on defense, and I was just like, whatever, and I walked off the field, and
I ripped you.
oh, that was an experience, and I run off, still to this day, I run off the field as fast as I can.
Yeah.
Like, you can watch college film, I'm sprinting off the field.
Well, there's something to be said about fear motivation.
Well,
Fear motivation
there's
works.
that. There's no sitting in the weight room. I still don't feel comfortable sitting down in the
Oh,
weight room.
Like, anytime I go to a gym, I just, like, even, like, a sit-down machine, I feel weird. sitting.
Lacrosse, I never took my helmet off. There's just things that, like, I think it was just the fear of it not doing it. But
Well, you get conditioned to do things a certain way, and albeit it's just a part of the process. But I can remember the first game. Why
For
don't you tell
Parker.
about that first game? You remember for Parker and his first game?
His first,
Oh.
yeah.
well, that okay. Yeah,
That
you go ahead. I was
his
So it was late in
first
the
game.
game.
There was a minute and 47 seconds left, and we were almost winning. Like, we needed a touchdown to win,
I can still
and
tell you the play.
he was.
Don't do it.
They passed him the ball. It was a long pass. It was beautiful. It was
Right on the
beautiful.
money.
He caught it, but then a senior
From the other team.
from the other team caught him, and
He got hurt.
I
He
got
hurt.
pile
He got
driven.
hurt.
pal driven.
But
I got hurt.
But what was your response? That's the biggest thing.
Me?
No,
Mine.
no,
her.
mama.
Oh, we're going. Okay, yeah, we'll go to the other response after that.
Me or him?
You!
Well,
No, it was me.
It was Mom,
I was
not
screaming
me.
at you.
I wasn't near as bad.
We were
She did it all.
We were all on the field. Like, all four of
Yeah.
us were on that field.
On that field, and he
Grandpa was there
comes
too?
off like this. Yeah, his grandfather's up in the press box, and I thought it was a stinger by the way he was holding his arm and screaming at him to get back in there to shake it off. And it wasn't until I saw the athletic trainer walking up to me on the sidelines and saying, "You want to come see it?"
Well, let Parker tell you what happened.
Oh, I shattered it into 7 pieces. My
Climb.
I got
Climb.
body slammed by this free safety just sitting in the middle in cover 3, and just got laid on my shoulder, shattered it, got a nice big plate and 7 screws. I remember just like, I was in shock getting over to the sidelines. I kind of just had the
Yeah,
blood
you ran
rush
off
to
the
my
field.
head.
Most people
He
wouldn't
ran
run
off the field, but he ran behind
Well, because
The
I didn't
huddle.
know, like, it was just a blood rush of like, I don't know where I'm at. I was in shock. It almost felt like a concussion to like I got knocked out. But
You about got knocked out by Mama when you came to the sideline. You better get your butt back.
oh, I remember
Coach's wife was in full force. That was good stuff.
Or
Well, it's
sitting
the
there
first
screaming.
game in a new town. It was like, oh, what are we doing?
Hey, but I never dropped a pass.
No,
I
you
still
didn't.
No,
caught
you
it.
No,
did
you
not.
didn't.
He still caught it.
But that was the end of your first, year at that school, and that was tough. And then you
We
went
had
on.
surgery and all that week, and
Yeah.
just a week later, a week after surgery, I remember my job was they were having practice on a field, and my job was down the couple blocks away, and I was driving by, and I see him holding the ball for the kicker
Well,
right after
he
surgery.
had to be involved, and
I
he's been the
know.
ball boy forever. He'd always been involved, and I think more than anything, I don't know that he was a football thing. I think it was a family thing. He said, "This is just what we do, and I want to do it because it's part of the family." But he ended up having really good years. He was a punter, he's a defensive back, he was a receiver, he played quarterback in high school. But that was the one position I didn't want you to play because I didn't want everybody to.
I don't know. I
In
knew
ninth
to
grade.
stay away from quarterback.
But ninth grade year you did, remember?
Ninth grade year. You did.
No,
Yeah.
You did.
I don't remember that one.
Oh,
You did. You
I
did.
wanted to play quarterback.
I was receiver.
That wasn't. Yeah,
He wouldn't let me.
you played quarterback too. But yeah, what was your memories of being a coach's son?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be a quarterback. I feel like that. I was a quarterback in Pop Warner, so I was just like, I want to pick that back up again. And he was stern on telling me you are not going to play quarterback. And so I was just like, well, I got to play something else then. And my junior year, I only played DB.
Sophomore year.
Sophomore year, I
And
played
junior.
DB, safety mainly. I didn't play
You
much
were
of
also
offense.
not 240 pounds.
Yeah.
At the
And
time.
not
Let's be honest about that.
6'4".
man.
When did that
I
come?
was
You were a scrawny little
I
thing,
think
Oh,
my sophomore year I was maybe 130, 40 pounds.
and you weren't but about 6 foot, maybe 6'1". So
Yeah.
if y'all can't tell,
No,
he's
not
just a
even.
little bit taller than me. He's 6'4", 240. So I want to punch him all the time because if he'd have been like this in high school, I think we'd have won a lot more games. But either way, but your memories though is moving on as a coach's son.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I was like, he told me I couldn't play quarterback, and I was like, I want to play something else. I want to be on offense. I want to be involved on both sides of the ball. And I knew Parker played receiver, so I was just like, I might as well give this a chance as well. And we were running an offense that
Doesn't throw the ball.
doesn't
out.
throw the ball a lot.
Oh, no, that was the worst part.
And I still wanted to play receiver, and once I blocked almost every play, I kind of just was like, no, I'm just going to play defense for now on.
But see, that stuff, that blocking is what really got you
Yeah.
some attention from the college level. But it wasn't just about catching the ball, but you could block really well because you were a glorified lineman out there on the outside.
I was pancaking. As literally, if you try to press man me, I was taking you to the sideline. I just at 135 pounds, it didn't matter. I was taking you anywhere.
You used it. You were a tough nut too, and that might be some of that taekwondo that came out in you too, because
All that
you-
chopping.
all that. So we had this video. We did this highlight video, and he was doing this competition, and it's supposed to stop after about 30 seconds, and he couldn't get the cue, so he just continued to I mean, it was like for I don't know 3 or 4 minutes, and the people were like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
finally, guys, you got to stop because you were mastering the chop. that's
And
for
his
sure.
coach was the one that was in front of him doing it, and she just
She
kept
died
laughing.
Yeah. So, well, you guys have experienced a lot, and I know you guys have chosen not to go into teaching and coaching, which is outstanding on so many fronts for y'all because you're gonna make so much more money than we did. But I think ultimately those experiences probably have given you the necessary tools to persevere, to understand what hard work is, to understand teamwork, the value of personal accountability and responsibility, like everybody does. But yours is a different level because you got demanded not just in the locker room and weight room and the field, you got it at home too. So I still want to go back to the point that I love you guys and I appreciate what y'all did given everything you could, and I'm so proud of what y'all have become in spite of. But I also hope you guys will go back and look and say, hey, there's a bunch more better memories than in spite of memories. And my hope is it'll drive you guys throughout with your kids one day, and you'll get them involved. But any posing, any last shots y'all want to throw here, or last
I
things
wanna
y'all want to
know-
say?
I want to know Parker's hardest moment as a player. And I guess you want to do it any time or just with him.
I don't know. There were some good things about like the coaching style, like seeing. I remember taking stuff to lacrosse. I remember there's one time where you kept saying Armageddon every time we moved to a new school. It was like Armageddon. I got to be the comment and all that stuff. And you tried to make everybody hate you. And I remember doing that in lacrosse because we just had these couple guys on the team who just like didn't want to do anything. It was just so frustrating. And sometimes lacrosse has that, kind of lazy, just pretty boy mentality. And this is kind of what it was. I remember thinking back to that of like, all right, I'm gonna go be the comment, make them hate me, and then we're gonna win games. I remember every practice I was the most hated dude on the field. Finally, those two graduated, and I remember coming back the next year and talking to one dude. And I'm trying to think of how to rephrase it, because I don't know if you can blur it out. But he was basically like, "All right, you're not such a
Jerk.
mean jerk, bad guy, rude person, donkey." But it was kind of after that of like, all right, do what's necessary just to get it done. The means justifies the ends. That for me as a player was probably the hardest thing too. Is like just being that dude.
Well, all the places we went to too had really bad sports history,
Yeah.
right? So, in order to bond people, they have to either have a common enemy or a common goal. And like you said, most of them didn't care about the goal, so we would provide the enemy. That's what I would do usually right away. Is I'm gonna be the guy that you hate, and then they'll bond together, and then they'll understand. And it's worked out that way. And it's not that I went in there with some crazy psychological approach. This is what we're gonna do, but that's what happened. But I can imagine that some of that pushes too far and certainly makes enemies. And I'm glad you were able to see some of that good, but I'm sure it brought some bad too. You want to throw the
Which-
question back to think?
I'm trying to think of one for football before I don't know.
Pass it
I
over.
mean, what was? I
Now
mean,
you
I think
gotta
there was a hard overall of just, the coach's son. Not kind of the stigma around like you gotta know every play. At least for me, it was like I had to be perfect. Like remember the Titans, we would be perfect in every aspect of the game.
I feel like that. I mean, kind of just being around football, it kind of came a little bit easier
Yeah.
to me than I guess what everyone else would, even though I didn't play it after a while. And just like the plays, I really didn't have. I mean, I studied, but I didn't really have to as much as other people. I kind of just knew them, and I
Well,
could
you
still.
weren't the perfectionist that he was, because you're kind of, I want to play. Parker wanted to perfect it. He would go to the point where he would make sure everybody else was too. But yours was, I'd rather just play.
Well,
Disagree?
I feel like I got more getting everyone to play. I feel like his was more his own personal craft, and I was more getting everyone together to play.
Because you had to go through COVID, and you kept our program. You and a couple other guys really kept our program alive during the COVID shutdown. So, we're all indebted to you and your friends that kept that thing afloat because it didn't want to be there anymore. That's for sure.
I feel like, I guess my friend group that I had through COVID, especially the younger ones, honestly, that I wouldn't say looked up to me, but kind of did. That kind of just carried it on through the next few years. Kind of helped out the school and their athletics. Really, I feel like athletics overall has boosted ever since we've been there. I feel like COVID, honestly, ever since COVID, everything's gone uphill for that school.
What about you? So when we came home, and there were a
Oh.
lot of times where we came home and we were, well, at least me. I know there were times when I came home. I wasn't here for take because I was at school, but like when something happened and we had to go cry about dad's mean to us. Dad did this today. What? How did you handle that?
I don't know. I think for on dad's side, I just let him know. And I think I told you guys if it was really bad, like most of the time I just listen. And then we would talk about it later when you guys were sleeping. But if it was like really bad and you were just like so mad, and I knew it was going to be like it was bad, um, I think I used to tell you guys, both of you, that you guys have to take it out with him. He's your coach. It's not here. It is not happening in this house. And that was the biggest thing is keep the big stuff out of the house. And I don't really, I mean, you're moody, but.
Yeah.
Well, see,
But-
we've dealt with some poor principals. We've dealt
Yeah.
with some poor situations
The
that
politics
were really bad.
really brought it all, and that made it hard because I remember that, at least for me, really got in between all of us.
Yeah.
It did not make
No
my
doubt.
last
Senior
year,
year.
before college because I remember I didn't know who to go to because there were sometimes I couldn't go
You
to
didn't
you
know,
because
yeah.
it was you were
We were all
knew it.
stressed.
I didn't know
Yeah.
the whole thing. I knew some of it because it was still my principal. So, and there were people, so I couldn't go and know everything. But it was
I remember kind of during that time, I just don't have a memory of like talking to you for that whole time we were there.
I don't have.
I don't have a memory
yeah.
of like us hanging out, us talking. I don't have a memory of that. But like once we did leave that, that's kind of that's kind of where we started bonding and like kind of started getting better, and like actually started talking. Like before that moment, I really don't think we were ever really got along.
I
We
think
were always fighting about
Well,
everything.
you got 4 years separation.
there's
so
a Wii remote involved
Yeah.
somewhere.
the Wii remote upside the head. I recall that one for sure.
The game glitched. I won.
And you literally left for I think 30 seconds to go to the bathroom, and you come back and I have concussion.
A window.
Oh yeah,
On the back door.
Was that all on the same night?
It might have been.
I
you
don't
locked
know.
him
Someone
out.
locked some. I think it was
Oh no!
you
Was
locked.
No, I think that was.
You
Oh, yeah, that was
closed
a
the
different
window.
That was a different night.
He locked you out, and
it was a weak window. I was just knocking.
No.
no,
No, you were not.
But no,
harder. But no, I just.
But y'all's relationship now
it's
is,
good.
I think, pretty good. So
We're still looking for a remote.
Yeah, that's gonna
remotes-
ruin the
the remotes
relationship.
are-
if you can't find a
The
remote.
remote's
That's gonna be the issue now.
Well, we wanted to have you guys on and just talk about those experiences. And I know you guys have so many things going on in you guys' lives. We're going to be a part of as much as we can. But I know I speak for myself when I tell you again, I'm so proud and I love you guys. And I won't speak for Allison because I know she says the same. I'll say it differently. But how would you like to express your love and what you feel about these guys?
I'm just so proud of them. I think, and I'm gonna get upset, but I just think you guys were resilient in all our moves, and I don't think I could have done it. And I know you guys helped me through some times that I was struggling with moves.
And it's all Daddy's fault, so ain't no doubt about it. So I chose this profession. And y'all didn't choose it. Y'all just came into the world, and we put you through it. So you guys have come through it. I hope you guys recognize you're much stronger people and young men than I ever was, and I'm very, very proud of you. Any parting shots for you guys that you'd like to say goodbye?
Thank goodness that state employee health care plan pays for therapy.
Counseling jar has been all kinds of donations in there, had there?
Oh yeah, that was the big thing. Is that the family joke is anytime I kind of thought I messed up as a mom or we messed up as parents, I would say, I'll just put the money in the counseling jar. And I think someone asked for it their first year in college. But
Any parting shot on you, youngin? He's gonna finish his college career here soon, and he'll start off on his his life, like he's already finished his college career and he's started his life. So it's few and far between that we get them in the house together. So we just wanted to have this opportunity to reminisce, and you know, this is
Our life in front of the bleachers.